The time is 1893, and novelist and inventor H.G. Wells invites you to join him on a flight. From London to San Francisco, a romantic adventure, a breathless chase around the world and across a century. Time after time.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
I'm having a healthy choice bar. Everyone should have one.
From time to time, Aaron will decide, I know we're recording, but why don't I get a little snack to enjoy while we record? That's not a good instinct.
At least it's soft.
Okay, so people get gross chewing sounds and okay, good times. This week,
I'm not gnawed on a bone.
well, thank Jesus for that at least. Anywho, this week we'll be discussing the science fiction classic Time After Time, starring Malcolm McDowell, Mary Steenburgen, David Warner, and all the rest.
Oh my God.
Sweet Jesus. Now, Aaron, this was your movie choice, if I recall correctly.
Oh my God. This was 14-year-old Aaron porn. I love this movie so much. I had seen it 10,000 times because, you know, back in the old days, like the movie channel or whatever was streaming, just kept showing the same movie. There was like 5 movies and it would just loop perpetually. So I had seen this 10,000 times and then I took a 40-year break.
And you hadn't seen it since then? Since the early 80s?
I had not seen it since then. And it's not holding up. I mean, there's a reason why people are still not talking about it. I mean, people my age are like, oh yeah, they'll remember it.
But they remember it existed.
They remember it existed. They may not remember what happened. But oh yeah, took me back.
This is early. This is 19. I think is it 79 or is it 80?
79. My first year of high school. How
Sweet
about that?
Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember the same way you do, being on HBO 1,000 times. I vaguely remember from that, and I feel like I watched it again 15 years ago or something. I have like I remember Malcolm McDowell going into McDonald's and having pommes frites. Oh,
he's like smelling it and everything.
Right. Why in the hell do I remember that? I don't know. But I think because I saw it.
You thought he was looking for a little in and out because you're like, how can you have Malcolm McDowell from A Clockwork Orange is now Mr. Goofy Grape smelling pommes frites at a McDonald's in San Francisco? You're waiting for
that is correct.
To begin. A little of the ultra violence.
That is exactly correct. That is exactly correct. Now, truth be told, I mean, 70s era. And frankly, his whole career. If you ask me, can you name 5 movies that Malcolm McDowell was in? I'm not sure I could. I remember Time After Time and Clockwork Orange. Now I'm sure he's been in 10,000 things.
He's still kicking around.
I just saw him in Father Stu. He played an old withered Catholic priest. So there you go. He's the hardest working man in show business. Clearly.
Gotta do it. I think he's got like 6 kids. They're probably your age, though.
At least for openers. Why don't you give us your 30-second synopsis of Time After Time?
Time After Time. So H.G. Wells, back in, I think it's 1893, I think we open up. He's got all his little buddies in his living room for his Explorers Club, and he's got the big reveal, and they're just waiting for his good friend, John Leslie Stevenson, to appear. But he's a little late because apparently he's Jack the Ripper, and he's like carving people up at dinner time. So he arrives. They're about to make. They're making the grand introductions. The big reveal. H.G. Wells has invented a time machine. Knock, knock, knock. Police. Jack the Ripper jumps to the time machine. Poof! He's in San Francisco. H.G. follows him. Falls in love. Hunts him down. Almost loses his love. Goodness always triumphs, and they all decide to go back to the future. No, back to the past, and live their righteous selves, exploring free love and women's rights. The end.
Very good. Now, okay, we talked about how you literally had not seen it since 1979 on home box office. You didn't see it in the theater, though. It was just on cable at that time, right?
I think it was cable. I don't remember seeing it at the theater.
Yeah, I like we said, I think I saw bits and pieces at that time on cable. And then I believe I saw it in its entirety for the first time 15 or 20 years ago. And then that was it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my God, I loved it so much, especially the end. And now I look back.
In horror?
It's a little ridiculous. The end is so melodramatic, but I still like the end. When he's banging him, it was so sappy. It speaks to my 14-year-old sense of love and everything. Please don't kill her.
Oh, very. Yes. Malcolm was earning his paycheck that day. Say what you want. Now, let's jump in with the highlights. Do you want us to go first? What you got?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I love David Warner.
Dynamite.
Warner always plays a good baddie. He's always very menacing. You don't imagine him ever telling a joke, and it's always low key. He's not running around like what's his name, Dr. X, who's in Split. No, he's not acting crazy like that. It's all toned down and menacing. He like makes a threat and looks at you, and he's gonna carry it out. But at one point, he's wearing a John Travolta disco white suit, and women are drawn to him. Bing, bing, bing.
He pulls into the bank to exchange more currency, and he's wearing like a blue turtleneck and a crazy denim vest, and I'm like, what in the? He's really. I mean, is he hanging out on Haight-Ashbury? What is happening?
He is super fly. He rolls in and he immediately like apparently just travels with gold sovereigns. So he immediately buys clothes, whereas HG has been wearing the same outfit for 6 weeks, and immediately, but it's also he immediately finds a chick to shack up with.
Thank goodness.
Who never mentions the fact that he's wearing the same outfit every day, same chonies. They're getting busy, and he must stink to high heaven.
Well, they definitely yada the fact that Jack the Ripper has a money belt that he brought with him from the past. He just happened to be wearing a money belt full of riches when he's out just walking the streets of London in 1893.
You just don't know. You don't know when you're going to need it.
Right.
It's like Al Capone with like $10,000 in his wallet.
Right. Well, I mean, poor HG is sleeping in the park the first night. He doesn't have a pot to piss in.
After he stole his housekeeper's earrings, he didn't really even ask her. He just looked at her and pulled off. What if those were like her mother's or something?
Not anymore. And he sold them all for 400 bones, and that was that. He got some pommes frites from McDonald's.
I like that he just sat down with strangers too. It was like sharing a table. That's very European. We don't be doing that in America. Hey, people who come to America, there's no like family seating at McDonald's. If someone's at a table and there's an empty chair, keep moving.
But I mean, his defense, it was packed. It was rush hour at the local McDonald's, which later he refers to as that fine Scottish restaurant, McDougal's. Oh, sweet Jesus. Good times. There's that scene.
Did
go for it.
Did you see baby Corey Feldman?
Yes, I wrote that down. Yes, when HG, oh God, we have to talk. Okay, let's talk about Corey Feldman. So Corey Feldman, little in his screen debut, Corey Feldman is the one saying, "Mommy, mommy, what's that guy doing in the time machine in the museum? Mommy." Crazy, crazy Corey Feldman. Yes, I highlighted that. We have to talk about the workings of this time machine because there's so many bits and pieces to it that make
sense.
no GD sense at all. So, if you take the time machine and you don't have the key, then the time machine will just like be recalled back to 1893 without you. Is that what it is?
Off. It's a one-way taxi. It drops you off and then returns.
Okay. Now there's another thing that's another kind of, I don't know, another key or an outside key.
The dark crystal.
The dark crystal.
That one sends you with David Bowie into the labyrinth or something.
Well, and it's like if you pull that out, then it just shoots you into the future, or what?
Into oblivion with Tom Cruise.
Is that what you're telling me? So, but there's a lot of room for error. Let's just say that. I mean, in a way, it's almost like they had to come up with, okay, if Jack the Ripper steals the time machine and goes into the future, then how does H.G. Wells get to follow him? So we have to come up with this contrivance that brings the time machine back to H.G. Wells so we can follow him. So that's the importance of the key, right?
If you travel for time, I didn't see a dial that said city. So if you leave London and you travel into the future, you go to San Francisco because that's all that's left of humanity in 1979, November 5th. 1979.
I know. It's always November 5th, evidently, when you're traveling through time. Now, the reason why they had to come up with another contrivance, if you get in the time machine in London, and then while you're traveling through time, somebody discovers the time machine because it doesn't move. It just stays in that place. If they discover the time machine 100 years later and then they move the time machine somewhere else, then that's wherever they moved it to, that's where you end up.
So the time machine has to physically exist in the future. So in 1978, if someone dismantled it, but you in 1893, what happens?
Then I guess you're zapped off to oblivion with Tom Cruise. I guess.
Side of the moon. Yeah.
Well, and I guess if you watch the movie The Time Machine, the original one with Rod Taylor from the 60s, that was kind of the thing where it's just like the time machine doesn't move, right? So it's like he's sitting in the chair of the time machine and you can see like the flower like opening and closing next to him because time's passing. Right. And then you see the flower like he stays in one place and it's just kind of like you're in a state of suspended animation. Really is what it is. The world moves on without you, but you're staying in the same place, but you just don't notice the time change, I guess. So if somebody takes the time machine and dumps it in the ocean, and then you teleport into the future and it's just the bottom of the ocean, I guess you drowned at that point.
What if the time machine was at the base of Mount Vesuvius and that chooses to erupt again? Do you just wake up? You're one of those little plaster people that they find in Pompeii?
There is something in the Time Machine movie where something like that happens, basically. He's in the thing. He's in the time machine, and you see like rock just form over him. But luckily, he chose a time period 100,000 years in the future. So the rocks form over him and then erode off of him again. Luckily. Like, I guess if you just chose, right as the eruption's going on, then you're just dead, right? You wake up in a pool of lava and that's the end of your story. I don't know how this works.
It needed to be made out of a material that never erodes or decomposes because it needs to physically exist for 100,000 years and 100,000 years back.
Yes, that is correct.
Is it made out of diamonds? Is it? No, it can't even be diamonds because what if the pressure? I don't know.
Gold? Gold doesn't tarnish, but it's very
gold is
soft. So you get squished.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't explain it. But that's why he winds up in San Francisco instead of modern day London. Like they said that they found the time machine in his basement after World War II, and now there's just the H.G. Wells, museum piece that moves around the world that people go and look at, including little Corey Feldman.
How old was H.G. Wells? Because we're assuming he's at least 35 in 1893, and he's still kicking his shit around after World War II.
He I will tell you, he was alive into the 1940s.
Oh.
So let me look this up. H.G. Wells. This is important information. He from 1866 to 1946.
Oh, not bad.
So there you go. So he was still around. Another interesting little point is that the woman, he meets Mary Steenburgen, who works at the currency exchange at the Bank of London, which is why Jack the Ripper chooses it. Her name is Amy Robbins. And if I look at Wikipedia, I see that H.G. Wells' spouse, his second spouse, Amy Catherine Robbins. Coincidence?
Did she go back in time and kill his first spouse with Jack?
And ate her body. No, they were. Yeah, she was a chud. That is correct. One thing. So basically, essentially, they combined the time machine, right, from the H.G. Wells novel with Jack the Ripper, which was a contemporary thing going on in the 1890s. So that was kind of an interesting conceit. Yes,
I'm down with it. I mean, the actual time travel was like a poor man's MTV kind of situation, but probably interesting for the time.
Well, and so it's like when he travels through time, it is like a crazy psychedelic altered states kind of thing going on there, over and over again.
Yeah, if only it is altered states.
Yes. So there's multiple scenes in this movie where it's H.G. Wells, because back in the 1890s, he's like, "Oh, I'm all for free love and socialism, and the world of the future will be utopia."
Right.
He's big on free love, and evidently that's the thing about H.G. Wells, is that even though his marriage to Amy Robbins is suggested to be this grand romance, he cheated on her incessantly. And he was arrogant about it. I looked it up. They said he was kind of like, "Hey, I should be able to have as many mistresses as I want, but she should not. For appearance's sake, she should be chaste." So he was...
Isn't that interesting? Philanderers always feel that.
So he's down for free love as long as the free love's coming at him, is basically what it is.
In the movie, like, she's this big advocate for women's rights. Methinks his attitude with screwing around is not going well with women's rights. He yadded her. Yeah. You come back, you can do that. Sure.
What kind of accent did Mary Steenburgen have in this movie? It almost seemed like she was Brooklyn or something.
Oh my God, there's so much wrong with Mary Steenburgen.
Oh, poor Mary Steenburgen. Hit me.
I love her in Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I always thought she was such a rockhead with this. She's in San Francisco, but she has a New York accent, but she's from Arkansas. Is she just trying to cover up the Arkansas? What the fuck was that accent? It was a mess. And she looked like she was on drugs the whole time.
Well, it was the 70s. So there was a lot of, it was funny. It's every now and again she'd drop some kind of 70s. She's like, smart guys really turned me on. It was that turned me on. We don't say that as much these days. That really turns me on.
Said was so odd. Her whole
Yes.
character was odd. But
Well, she was like
apparently
desperate.
she was desperate. She moved him, and she's like, I gotta close because everybody's gay. She's complaining everybody's gay in San Francisco. Never heard that before. So she needed to pin him down. So what if he says crazy shit? So what that if he's been wearing the same outfit for the weeks or months that we have been together? But I gotta get to this man.
It's not weeks or months, by the way. I think the movie takes place over the span of 3 days, but
So in 3 days, she says, "Fuck this! I'm going to the future with this sexy beast."
she goes to the past. Have you even seen this movie? Good Lord.
Instead of back to the future, it's
Forward to the past?
Forward to the past. That's the new movie.
That's this movie.
I always just found her so annoying. But apparently, she curled his toes because they got married. They were married for 10 years and had 2 kids after this.
Isn't that crazy? 10 years.
Wow.
Well, and he is like in his mid-30s, Malcolm McDowell, when he made this movie. I mean, he was like 28 when he was in Clockwork Orange. And the character is only supposed to be like 15 or something, if you've read the book.
Oh, I didn't read the book because the movie's horrific enough. I didn't realize they were so young because they made those guys look old.
They're old and crotchety. But
They're old and just whoosh.
But that's it's all craziness. Going from Clockwork Orange to now he's kind of this mousy, bespeckled guy with his crazy mustache.
He's got range, brother. Range.
He's got range. Good old Malcolm McDowell. I want to go back to the beginning of the movie because before we know anything, we know this is a Jack the Ripper kind of movie because there's the scene where the hooker's talking to, you don't see who she's talking to. And she's like, oh, let's do this. And he's like, points back to an alley where there's just fog just pouring out of this alley. Why is there only fog in the alley?
You know what bothered? I mean, I didn't even notice that. But what bothered me about the Jack the Ripper thing is the musical Pocket Watch. They never address who the woman is. Is this a love? Is this his mother? Is this Susie Q down the road? They never address who this person is.
Well, and that's all fiction, right? We don't know anything about Jack the Ripper, really.
Right. But I mean,
so it could be anything.
Story, it could have been addressed because they made a point of prominently showing the picture and playing that music over and over.
And that's the thing. Did
it come with the watch?
It came with the exactly.
It's just a snappy tune that was popular with the kids. It's K-pop of 1893.
Well, because you wanted a moment where, we as the audience know the tune and associate it with Jack the Ripper. And then maybe H.G. Wells is chit-chatting with Jack the Ripper and he pulls out like his pocket watch and the tune plays, which like tells the audience, oh, you're the killer, right? But there wasn't a moment like that. Instead, they're like having dinner and the cops bust in. And we have to talk about it. Okay, so Jack the Ripper is getting dirty with the prostitute in the alley. And then you hear a sound, and I remember thinking this as a child, watching this. It's like this. And what you're supposed to think is that's Jack the Ripper slicing. He had a big lunch. You're supposed to think that's Jack the Ripper like slicing her. Like it's a sound of like fabric tearing or something.
Wait,
or flesh tearing.
With the prostitute?
Yes.
Jeez. Yeah, I thought that was the sound of metal or the fabric and the being sliced.
Yes, that's what it was. But, 6-year-old Kevin heard that and I'm like thinking, did he just fart?
6-year-old Kevin watching prostitutes getting killed.
I remembered this scene. And I was confused by it because they don't show you anything. You just see her face, and then you hear the.
Okay, it does not sound like someone's just taken a crap.
I thought that's what was happening. I'm like, this seems like a bad time to be ripping it. Even at 6 years old, I was disturbed by the. I'm like, keep it together, big guy.
Oh, why you need to keep it together?
I'm just telling you, literally, that's what I thought. I mean, it stuck with me for 40 years. That's because I did not realize, I didn't know anything about Jack the Ripper or any of this stuff. There was just, a faceless guy and a fancy lady going into an alley and then just ripping ass is all I thought was happening at the time.
It's the farting alley. That's a very British thing.
That's where all that smoke was coming from, evidently.
That was gas.
And I have to say, okay, that being said, Jack the Ripper is wearing white gloves to murder the hooker. So now there's blood all over his white gloves, which he promptly just throws in his medical bag to easily be discovered later.
I mean, I understand that they would wear gloves when you're out and you're about. But it's not like they had DNA back then.
There's no fingerprints that they're checking.
They could just drop those. I guess he's a cheap bastard and figured he'd just wash them when he gets home.
He just tossed them in the medical bag. So when the cops arrive, now remind me, did the cops know? Why did the cops come to H.G. Wells' house to look for Jack the Ripper? Do you remember?
I thought they were doing a search of the area. They're doing a
door-to-door search. And in that search, they find John Leslie Stevenson, which is a very interesting name. Why is that the name of Jack the Ripper in this movie? Why is he John Leslie Stevenson?
It is a very dramatic name, and because who's it like? Isn't that like a Civil War dude with a similar name?
There's the John Paul Jones.
Yeah.
I'm going to look up John Leslie Stevenson. John Leslie Stevenson.
It's going to pop up time after time.
Right. There's a pornographic film director named John Leslie. That's not who I want.
No.
John Leslie.
Or is it?
Or it could be John Leslie Stevenson. Nope, nothing's coming up. Let me just try Google. Because I wonder if this was like somebody that was suspected of being Jack the Ripper at the time. Is that possible? Or is this all nonsense? Because it seems like a very interesting name. John Leslie Stevenson.
I think there's a John Wesley, like our cousins. John Wesley Stevenson.
Serial killer / time traveler.
See?
So that seems...
If you're lost, you can look and I will find you. Time after time.
Okay. And anyway, fictional character. So it means nothing. So that was helpful. That was helpful.
That was nice. That was a nice little break from talking.
From reality. Sweet Jesus. And also I wrote down Willy Wonka's time machine. Because it kind of looked like the Great Glass Elevator in a way. Or like the boat.
The way of knowing which direction we are going. Yep.
Oh, and here's
brass and glass.
A lot of brass and glass with like buttons, like flashing buttons, and again,
rivets and jewels, like jewels.
Jewels.
It's important to have it bedazzled.
It was basically like
victorious.
It was like if a Sleestack had designed it. Frankly, it looked like the inside of a pylon with crazy crystals and things like that. That's an important thing.
I was hoping to get the time machine going, you just use your claw hands and rearrange the crystals.
You absolutely, that's how you do it. But so HG shows it to his drinking buddies, including Jack the Ripper, which the audience didn't know he was Jack the Ripper at the time either. Right? It's like 5 minutes into the movie, faceless guy kills a prostitute. Then H.G. Wells is hanging out with his buddies, having dinner, drinking brandy or whatever they do.
Toasting and then the queen or whatever.
Right.
The fuck.
Whatever they do. Then the final member of their group, David Warner, arrives, John Leslie Stevenson, and 30 seconds later, we find out he's Jack the Ripper. They might as well have just shown us that he was Jack the Ripper in the opening scene, right? Because it's like, this ain't M. Night Shyamalan. There was no twist at the end of the movie. Oh my God, it's this guy.
Was that the
Ver-
big reveal? I knew it all along. Damn you, M.
I
Night.
knew it all along. Oh, sweet Jesus. So there's the scene again at the beginning of the movie. So he kills the hooker. She screams. He runs off, and a cop instantly appears and looks down the alley. Like the cop would have seen Jack the Ripper running off with a bloody knife in his hand. This is
It's
one
a
of those things that they
scalpel.
do. With a
It's a scalpel. So
was it a
would be-
scalpel?
Well, that's what they assumed. I mean, it's not a machete.
Did we see it? This is making me
No.
doubt myself. Or was it a straight razor? Or what was happening? I don't even remember.
I'm just thinking Jack the Ripper lore.
Okay.
They think it's a smaller knife, that's why they think it's a doctor, and everything is contradictory with that.
Now here's another interesting question. H.G. Wells is like, oh my God, I've unleashed Jack the Ripper into this utopia of the future. I've got to follow him. And then do what?
Well, that's what Jack the Ripper says to him. And you're going to do this how? You're taking me back how? What?
Right!
You weigh like 105 pounds. What are you going to do?
Yeah, David Warner's got...
David Warner's on 6 feet tall.
At least.
Channel like some of his Omen stuff, and that's going to be the end of HG.
His head will get lopped off with a pane of glass, just like the Omen. A mannequin head rolling down the street. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, was he going to do some Krav Maga on him or something? I mean, how are you going to get him just appeal to his better nature? Say, hey, man.
Exactly.
Ridiculous.
We all do rash things, and with prayer, all can be forgiven in the afterlife. But I think you realize that you're meant to come back and get hung in a public square or whatever the they used to do back then.
Yeah, exactly. Good plan.
Yeah, appeal to your better nature.
Oh, good Lord. They go to the movies at one point, and there's a hilarious scene where H.G. Wells is hiding behind the seats because there's a lot of machine gun fire, and he's very, very concerned. When they leave the theater, did you see what movie was on the marquee?
Exorcist 4.
Exorcist 4!
But I didn't see Exorcist 4, but I assume it wasn't like a war military movie.
Well, I'll tell you this. There was no Exorcist 4, number one.
I hope not.
And at the time they made this, there wasn't even an Exorcist 3 yet.
Ha! Well, it's the future. They figured it would be so successful, it would just keep rolling. They could have put like Tron 9 or something.
Yes, that is correct. Do you have any other scenes you want to talk about? I got a list here.
Did you notice the lady walking around in the clear plastic pants?
Yes, I did.
Oh
Chesty LaRue was strutting. I mean, she must have been a streetwalker as well, right? Or was she just this is the 79?
All I can tell you is that it was like a real thing that I remember seeing people wear on American Bandstand.
For reals?
For reals. Plastic pants and clear plastic wraparound skirts. They were things.
I just think you'd be sweaty as hell and they'd be fogging up.
Oh, yeah. And it was very important to dress like you were a dancer. So everybody wore leotards, which are fabulous when you're at club drinking and dancing. Then you got to make a whiz.
You just have to peel it off yourself, basically.
No, you have to slide it over to the side.
Oh, no. Okay. That's too much info.
It's
too much
stuff over.
Come
on. You're very, very...
very concerned about such things.
You live in a house full of women.
No one's wearing full body leotards all the live long day, or plastic pants and skirts for that matter. Thank Jesus for that.
The first thing women don't want to do is have to completely disrobe in a public restroom and just sit there half naked while people are peeking in the cracks to see if you're done yet. Which is why the pantsuit comes in and out of style, but it never lasts long. Because once again, that requires you to basically drop your entire wardrobe onto the floor of a nasty public bathroom.
Let me say this. When I've used public bathrooms, if the door is closed, I take it, okay, say no more. I'm not peeking through the crack to see what people are doing in there. I'm not doing that.
I assume these people are going to like the Viper Room or CBGB where there's probably not even a door.
This is the night at the Roxbury where it's just peek right in. Let the good times roll.
And then the only other thing I really had, there were some kind of cool shots of like David Warner driving in a cab with like lights kind of going by.
Yep.
Where the second unit got to shine. But there were some moody, kind of interesting shots while he was out on the cruise.
There's a scene when H.G. Wells is trying to track down Jack the Ripper at like the red light district, essentially, and he's walking down the street, and there's essentially just a woman in a cage on top of a pole dancing around. Not in the club, just on the street.
I think
is that how they did it?
I think that was a thing. I think that's an old thing.
It's upsetting to
me, but I'm desperate to Google that right now.
Do not Google it. Do not want to know anymore.
Well, San Francisco, I mean, you had the O'Farrell Theater with the you had all kinds of funky business. It's a free land for free people.
Just ask Mary Steenburgen. At one point, they go to lunch together, and then she just never goes back to work. Did you notice that? That's how you get fired. That's how you get fired. They're up in the Redwoods at one point.
Yeah. They're cruising around. I mean, what is her job? She just sits in a booth and changes money? Is that like a minimum wage job? It's not like she's a loan officer.
No, she just does currency exchange.
Yeah, you charge them 1% or that's got to be a minimum wage job. She's dressed like she's the CEO.
I'm sure it's not a minimum wage job, but you're absolutely right when you're saying
the exchange, the currency exchange, the guy who unplugs the toilets, and then it just goes up from there. I mean, I would think the person who has to clean the bathroom should get paid more than the person who goes, the pound is 1.35.
All you need is a calculator.
Yeah.
Okay, granted, you don't need an advanced degree to do that. But at one point, she was offended because he said, you should come back with me. And she's like, well, hang on. I've got this career that I've devoted my life to. Currency exchange is my life. I'm a liberated woman.
I'm a liberated woman. I mean, that everything about her was irritating. And that was such a stupid thing to say. She didn't start her own business. She's literally sits there all day yakety schmacking with her little homie there and changes currency. It's got to be the most boring thing. It's got to be right up there with the cashiers at Las Vegas about how exciting a job it is.
Well, I mean, and her job is so unimportant that she could just go to lunch, never come back, and no one cares.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Exactly. So that's the biggest bullshit. I mean, everything about her character, all her dialogue, everything is so fucking annoying. It's really about these two guys. I mean, I like the ending where he's begging for her life and all of that. I really do. It's super mushy. But the rest of the time, I'm going to stab her.
Is that the 7th F-bomb or the 8th? You're putting me to work on this one. Sweet Jesus. No! Damn you! Damn you!
It's like to a hard R.
So, you're telling me. Later in the movie, he gets arrested because people think that they think he's the killer, because of course Jack the Ripper is now killing people in modern times.
Go to the police, and he tells them that he is Sherlock Holmes. So now he's a crank. So now he knows too much. So you're damn right he gets arrested.
I mean,
it's stupid for such a genius.
He says, "I'm Sherlock Holmes." Again, keeping in mind that Sherlock Holmes was a well-known literary character in his time.
Right.
So
well, he assumes we wouldn't know it anymore.
I see.
You should probably test that out before you bring that out. I'm Julius Caesar.
Exactly. So he thinks Jack the Ripper is now come to her apartment to murder her because he figured out that she's working with H.G. Wells, basically.
So one, they're scared and they're nervous. So then she breaks up with him because she finally realizes, because she's stupid, that he might be insane.
Right.
Still wearing the spats and the same outfit from 6 weeks.
Well, because he finally told her, I'm from the distant past, and I'm H.G. Wells, and I came here in a time machine. So then she's like, deuces. I may be desperate, but I ain't that desperate. But so there's
this. In fact, the time traveler's wife. So is the new movie, The Time Traveler's Wife, in fact, about their relationship?
It is. It stars Mary Steenburgen as herself.
As
herself.
That's based on a true story.
That's what they say. Now, okay, so later they release H.G. Wells because he's like, you got to let me go because, my girlfriend's going to be murdered at this time. And of course, they don't let him go because they think he's nuts. And somebody was murdered. Now H.G. Wells, there's a scene where he's just walking kind of aimlessly. And then suddenly, there's Mary Steenburgen. And she's being held prisoner by evil Jack the Ripper. How did they know where H.G. Wells is going to be? Did they just bump into him?
Why didn't he just leave? Oh, because he wants the key. So he has to be available because he needs the key.
But my question is, how did they know H.G. Wells was going to be where he wound up being? They just bumped into him at a random spot. There was no meet me at this time, at this hour, and bring the key.
Well, maybe Jack the Ripper and whatever the hell her name is are just taking cable cars all through the city, hoping to run into him.
They're going door to door, much like the police.
Brody. It's a San Francisco treat.
It is a San Francisco treat. Sweet Jesus. Anything else, or can we move on with our lives?
I have said all I've come here to say.
Well, let us go behind the scenes, shall we?
We shall.
All 4 of the real H.G. Wells children were still alive at the time of this film's release.
Oh, that's wild. Were they consultants?
Well, they were not. Malcolm McDowell listened to recordings of H.G. Wells to prepare for this role. And upon hearing it, he's like, the voice was high-pitched and very Cockney-ish. So he said, F it, I'm just going to do my own voice.
Yeah, he's like, I can't do this. People are going to laugh at me.
I ain't doing all that stuff. There's a deleted scene where Wells meets a punk rocker with a ghetto blaster. He's just blasting, and their fun interaction. It got cut, but the director dragged it out again for when he directed Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Use that scene. Yeah.
So H.G. Wells is in fact in Star Trek: The Voyage Home.
It's the shared universe. That's correct.
It's the multiverse.
Let's see. The movie's title inspired the hit song by Cyndi Lauper, Time After Time.
See? Yeah. It was porn for her too. If you're lost, you can look and I will find you.
In 1983, she browsed through a copy of TV Guide for imaginary song titles. That's how deep her music gets. She's just like, I'm just flipping through the TV Guide, whatever I can come up with.
All right, she did go to that whole weird wrestling phase with Lou Albano and all that.
Captain Lou!
Captain Lou, I still love Cyndi Lauper. Remember when she used to be on Celebrity Apprentice with Crazy Dog?
I remember. She was nuts. I will say this.
And I love her.
You know what? I will say this. I used to watch Celebrity Apprentice every season. I thought it was hilarious.
Me too.
And the realities have ruined it for me forever. So it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
I, at one point, at least on the Celebrity Apprentice, had a positive feeling about Donald Trump.
I did too.
Wanted him to be president. He seemed like a reasonable person.
He did. He absolutely seemed like a reasonable guy. His kids seemed intelligent and charming.
I loved his daughter.
Ivanka.
Ivanka was clearly the brains of the operation.
Yep.
The boys were knuckleheads.
They were fine.
They were
Clearly we
not.
know they're knuckleheads now, but Ivanka was always very impressive. Now it's
Even
all just
then,
a
I
horror
thought they
show.
were. Yeah, even then, I thought they were knuckleheads. But I had positive. I always had weird feelings. They seemed just like idiots. She seemed like she had it on the ball, and Lord.
All down the crapper.
No, but I would only watch The Celebrity Apprentice. I would never watch just The Apprentice. I only cared about celebrities getting messy.
I did too. That was the good stuff.
You're fired.
Frankly, I watched they tried to bring it back with Arnold Schwarzenegger as the host, and it wasn't nearly as good. It just wasn't.
Stewart, too. Not as good.
It's not as good. Anywho, Mary Steenburgen in this movie plays Amy Robbins, a 20th century woman who falls in love with a time traveler from the 19th century. In Back to the Future 3, she plays Clara Clayton, a 19th century woman who falls in love with a time traveler from the 20th century.
Ooh.
Coincidence.
Time after time.
That is correct. Amy Robbins, we know, was played by Mary Steenburgen, but originally the studio wanted Sally Field to play. That was the first choice. The studio wanted that. The director,
seems like she would be too old.
she definitely would have been older. But keeping in mind that Malcolm McDowell was 10 years older than Mary Steenburgen at this time. So she probably would have been a little bit older, but I don't think it would have been strange.
All right.
Then the director wanted to choose his girlfriend, Shelley Hack, who was one of the forgotten Charlie's Angels.
Yeah. I don't know if that's better or worse, because I found Shelley Hack annoying and I found Mary Steenburgen. So annoying, I guess, is what they were going for.
That's what they were going for.
They were going for Ding Dong against his more intellectual side. Great.
The tune played by Jack the Ripper's pocket watch is based on Charles D'Averne, the Spinner. You know it, don't you?
When I think of the Spinner, I was thinking about 60 Minutes when they used to have these kids with autism where they'd spin these plates on the floor.
That's exactly what they were going for. ABC produced a Time After Time TV series based on this film in 2017.
Oh my God, that's a little late to the game.
Little late. The network removed the series from its schedule due to low ratings after broadcasting 5 episodes.
Who was in it?
I don't know. Somebody.
Was it still Malcolm McDowell?
Still Malcolm McDowell and Mary Steenburgen.
It was about 70 and she was like 55 or something.
Malcolm McDowell was attracted to the script because he was looking for something different than the sex and violence from Caligula.
Oh, I forgot about Caligula.
There you go. Add it to the list.
3 times, but Malcolm McDowell is not shaking his goods. Everybody else, though. Helen Mirren's in that.
Check it out. He played
Peter
Caligula.
O'Toole is in that. Yeah, Peter O'Toole's in it. Who else? The butler from Arthur.
Gilgood.
Gilgood. They're all in Caligula.
I will not be tuning in to watch that.
I don't think it qualifies for us, but I've in fact seen it several times.
I believe you. I believe you have. Let's just say that. The director's first choice to play Jack the Ripper, was Edward Fox.
I don't even know who the hell that is.
He's kind of like this. You can Google him. He's done a bunch of things. He was in like A Bridge Too Far, things like that. Very British guy. Very British. Mick Jagger was considered for the part.
Oh, that could have been good, because actually Mick Jagger is a good little actor.
Well, they said they couldn't see him convincingly playing a Harley Street surgeon, because you got to be kind of this upper crust guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we talk about the cast? We have basically talked about them, but let's talk about them again. Malcolm McDowell played H.G. Wells. You know him from A Clockwork Orange. You know him from Star Trek Generations.
You know him from Caligula.
He was in Caligula. He was in Time After Time, and he was in Rob Zombie's Halloween as Dr. Sam Loomis in 2007,
Interesting.
which I never saw. I won't see any more Rob Zombie movies.
Because it's Rob Zombie.
Yeah. No,
now,
thanks.
I did tell you my little tell about how I met Malcolm McDowell and had a little conversation with him.
No.
So
No.
I was up at Humboldt going to college, and I went up to Clam Beach because they said there was a dead whale. So my friend and I went up to go look at the dead whale, and they're apparently shooting a movie. So we had to walk around. And I had like this old fashioned camera because I was going to take some shots. And he's coming right towards me. I was like, holy shit, it's Malcolm McDowell. And some blonde chick was like hanging all over him. And he stopped me and talked to me about my camera. He was the loveliest person. He's like, we use cameras just like this to set up scenes. Blah, 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 blah. He was just super friendly, asked what we were doing. Lovely.
Oh, very cool.
I was freaking out. Somewhere in my piles, I took a picture of him. I have a picture of Malcolm McDowell, and I was just Googling him. I think that's his wife.
I think you're right. Well, we hope.
I mean, because this was 1,000 years ago, and she was like very clingy and giggly, and he was having like a serious talk. I was like, who is this bimbo? But I Googled her picture, and I think that's actually his wife, or his wife now.
Well, I will say this. He is definitely top 2 of my favorite McDowells ever.
Is it Andy McDowell and Malcolm McDowell?
Roddy McDowell. How dare... Yeah, Andy McDowell. McDowell's Restaurant from Coming to America is number 1.
I will tell you, of those 3 McDowells, oh my God, now I can't even speak. I'm having many strokes. Malcolm is at the top of the list.
Mary Steve.
Lovely, because I have met so many celebrities who are asshats. Ed Marinaro, Hill Street Blues. We always have weird interactions with these celebrities from Palm Springs. They're always impatient and dickballs.
Ed Marinara. Good times. Mary Steenburgen played Amy Robbins in Time After Time. You know her from Las Vegas? You know that one? She was in Step Brothers. I remember that.
Oh, I did see that.
She was in Back to the Future Part 3. We talked about that.
Never
and
saw that.
Time After Time. She's currently married to...
Enthusiasm.
That means nothing to me.
What? You don't watch Curb? She
Not
and Ted
religiously.
Danson are both on it.
That's her husband. Good times.
Right. So in Curb Your Enthusiasm, they break up. So Ted starts dating Larry's wife, and then Larry thinks he's moving in on Steenburgen, and she's like shutting his business down. Good old Larry.
David Warner played John
David
Leslie
Warner.
Stevenson, the Jack the Ripper. You know him from Star Trek 6? What is this one? On Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, Titanic as Spicer Lovejoy, Tron, 1982, In the Mouth of Madness. I love him from Waxwork, of course. I mean, he's the hardest one. The Omen, for God's sakes, he loses his head literally and figuratively.
And he wasn't even the bad guy in the Omen.
Not the bad guy. Not the bad guy at all. So that's it. I don't think we need to talk about anything else.
He's still working.
He's still doing his business.
He's still working. He has voiceover. His voice is exactly the same. So he has that kind of deeper, a little poshier British voice.
Dynamite. Shall we talk about the rating? Time After Time currently has an 88% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience, 72%.
That's still pretty good. That's a lot better than I thought it would have. I think there's a lot of nostalgia perhaps there. What did you think, Kevin? Were you bored by it?
No, I wasn't bored by it. I think it's definitely dated. But I thought it was an entertaining little romp, you know? Janet Maslin of the New York Times gave it 3.5 out of 5. A movie that's as sweet as it is clever, and never so clever that it forgets to be entertaining. So there you go. Not bad. Now it's just, she did give it a C. So,
I love how she gives it a C and acts and writes it up like you cured cancer.
That is absolutely correct. What is your rating, Aaron? Time after time.
It is such a hard one because I remember just loving this so much, and now I'm watching this going, this is a little boring. I'm like, what happened? And then I get to the end, and the end is so emotional and mushy that I'm like, but I still like it.
You're allowed to still like it. Hit me.
I'm going to give it 3 3/4 out of 5 Malcolm McDowell's Begging for My Life. Love you, Malcolm McDowell.
That is a good scene. I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. I thought it was it's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's dated, but it's kind of in that way. It's kind of its own little time capsule, isn't it? I mean, seeing what the inside of the McDonald's look like, the crazy McDonald's uniforms, and oh yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting time because it's like the end of the 70s. You got the beginning of the 80s. So it is like a little compression. I mean, you have the lady in the plastic pants wearing a leotard. So it is a little kind of a little treasured time capsule. Something like the 70s shows. I mean, I get that they were trying to put it so it looked like there were 70s. But, even if it's good, it's really not like this. This is a real little time capsule of that time. So.
Absolutely. It's fun. It's not offensive. Even the Jack the Ripper stuff, you don't see anything. You see his bloody gloves at one point, and you hear the...
That's it.
That's all you get. That's all you get. So...
You need to end the broadcast with 6-year-old Kevin of the ripping of the clothes.
I just might. So thank you very much. Go to our page on Twitter at TPodcast, TWDie. Go to our page on Facebook at The Podcast That Wouldn't Die. Aaron, Instagram, anything?
We're on the gram. We are The Podcast That Wouldn't Die. Most of our followers are, in fact, pornographers. So
that's good to know.
Stop sending me messages on Instagram saying I've uploaded a new video because you're not getting my credit card.
Not interested. Not interested. But that being said, you can email us at thepodcastthatwouldn'tdie@gmail.com. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the finer podcasts are available. So don't forget to like, share, rate, and review if you will. Aaron, are you on social media?
Indeedly do. I'm on the Twitski. I'm the Cult of Aaron. I'm on the Insta. I am the Cult of Aaron. I'm also Don't Feed the Pigeon. I'm on Artsy, which is not social media, but you should still go buy some art from me. Aaron Doherty on Artsy, Aaron Doherty on First Dibs. Spend.
Spend. I think we can all agree on that.
I believe there's a picture of my co-host, Mr. Kevin, that you can have blown up and placed over your bed if you'd like.
As you should. I mean, absolutely. That's the gift that keeps on giving. Get one for all your friends. Next week, we'll be discussing the horror classic. You asked for it. You got it. We're doing Troll 2. And you can watch that on Amazon Prime Video for free, I think.
Now, Kevin, I have to tell you that this is the first time I've seen any of these so-called troll movies.
Yes.
So would you say Troll 2 is better than Troll 1? Since I'm going to kill myself before I see Troll 1 after watching Troll 2.
Well, there's a huge backstory behind this. The original, I'm going to give you a little taste of what you can look forward to. The original movie Troll starred Noah Hathaway from Neverending Story, Michael Moriarty, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. It's an
This
all-star
seems like
cast.
a lot
Sonny
of
Bono,
celebrities.
so, June Lockhart from Lassie. It was I don't want to say a successful film because it was not. It was kind of a, blink if you'll miss it kind of movie, but it kind of had some success on home video. An unrelated movie, originally called Goblins, was made a few years later. And it was a steaming pile of crap, as we know. But in order to try to trick people into watching it, they changed the title from Goblins, which makes sense considering there are goblins in this movie and no trolls. They changed it to Troll 2 to try to cash in on the let's say, modest success of the original movie. So there you go. Unrelated.
Literally, it was paper mache
Yes,
costumes.
that is correct.
And one of the characters has paper mache eyes.
That is correct.
I don't know how the small actor actually saw anything going around.
They didn't, to answer your question. So there you go. So check that out. Send us any thoughts, feelings, comments, or questions about Troll 2. This is just a taste of the goodness that you will receive next week. So, thank you very much, and be well.